Hi, could I ask you a couple of Bible-related questions? Do you find it encouraging when you read your Bible? Are the verses exciting and the stories, can you relate them to your life? Or sometimes do you find that the characters that lived thousands of years ago, you have a little bit of trouble relating them to your own life? Well, hi, I'm Mary Stegmiller, and that's why I'm here. Because I do find the Bible encouraging and exciting and enlightening. I have a God-given gift for storytelling, for seeing the story within the story. And I have found that this helps other people have the Bible come alive for them. I didn't always see this as a gift, this storytelling ability. In fact, when I was young as in second grade, I can remember staring out the window, and along with my vision went my mind, and I was out on the grass playing while I was sitting in my desk, except, Mary, what's the answer? I didn't even know what the question was. Mary, turn around, put your feet flat on the floor, fold your hands and put them on top of your desk and eyes up here. Stop daydreaming. Didn't seem like storytelling was much of an advantage at that time. I looked around. Didn't seem like the rest of the class had any trouble daydreaming. I just couldn't turn it off. And I saw other problems with myself. I was too fat. I was too big for a girl. Girls weren't supposed to be athletic. My cousins were small, tiny little petite cheerleaders. That's the way girls were supposed to look and act. I didn't like myself. I loved God, but I didn't think God even liked me. And I put myself down with all these self-limiting names. And even though I had stories and poems sometimes roaming around in my head, I wouldn't share them with anybody. But God saw me differently. God had given me curiosity and insight and the ability to see stories in my head. And the words sometimes would form into songs and poems. I didn't realize not everybody could do that. And I thought nobody would like my songs or poems anyway, because I was still putting myself down. And God had given me physical ability to grow up and have 4 children of my own and to be in my 60s. He'd not given me useless talents. He had given me talents I was not using. Let that sink in. 68 years of stories and poetry and songs all roaming around in my head. There's a story in the Bible about a master giving his servants talents, and then that was gold bars. It was money. And in one steward, he just gave him 1 talent, 1 gold bar, and the servant was so afraid he'd lose it, didn't know how to use it, so he buried it. And when the master came back, he looked at the steward and said, "You are worthless and lazy, evil and lazy." The master represents God. And if the servant was me, evil and lazy for not using your talent. Let that sink in. I did. And that's really not how I want God to greet me. Can you imagine heaven with all its beauty and glory, and then coming to the throne of God and having him look down at you and say, "Oh, evil and lazy one, I see you're here." It's not the picture I wanted to see of myself in heaven. But for there to be change, I had to change. And that meant first healing from self-injuring thoughts and names. And I had to cast those off. And when I did that, I saw that God really had blessed me. and he had given me talents. Yes, I was different, but that's an odd way to think. We're all different. And maybe I was a little bit odd, but after all, that's just character. So now that I do see it, I am sharing my stories and my poetry. Here's an example of what I see when I read the Bible, a story that goes on in my head. The Bible said David was a man after God's own heart. But it also records in the Bible, the very same day David is going to meet Goliath, his oldest brother, Eliab, says to him, "You have a wicked heart." The Bible is true. That's a fact. So if Eliab said that, evil heart, God's heart, which is it? Well, Eliab thought that of David. That's the truth. David, what did you do to Eliab anyway? Story goes on in my head. And he has two other brothers there hearing Eliab say that. What did they think? And after David kills Goliath, Eliab has to see it. What does he think of David then? All these stories go on in my head. Don't tell me there's not a story there, because I wrote it. And I hadn't shared stories like this before, but now I do. And I bloomed into a new me, and at 69, I published my first book. And to my short little petite cousins, I can reach the top shelf in my kitchen, and I'm happy about that. And besides reaching up high, I want my life to be an encouragement to others, not just sharing my stories, but also sharing my mistakes and my victories. I want to bring life to the Bible, to draw people closer to God, and encourage people to be the best they can be of themselves. And if God can use a shepherd to be a king, and he can use a grandma to tell stories, what could he do with you? Here's just what a few readers have said who have read my book. Cheryl said, "It was a great way for me to share my faith with a new believer. Your book was an answer to prayer." And Nancy said, "Wow, I finished your book. I couldn't put it down. What a blessing your stories are about King David. It made the Bible come alive to me. Good job, and I'm looking forward to your next book. God bless." And Karen added, "I loved your book, and I'm reading it again." Judy said, "It's amazing. I love it. Beautifully done. It made the Bible come alive to me. I can't wait for your next book." And Mike said, "Well done." And he's a paramedic, and he found the stories gave him some new insight which would help him deal with his patients. Now here's what I offer. My book has 3 parts. It's a fictional story about King David's life, using the Bible for framework. I add my personal memories and poetry to show how I relate to the Bible. And lastly, I add questions at the end of each chapter so the reader can relate these lessons to their own lives. And in speaking, I would use the same threefold pattern. Here's what you would get. Entertainment. I expect you to laugh and cry at the stories. And 2, I expose the humanity of the Bible characters. Envy, pride, love, fear, joy, jealousy. They had those same feelings thousands of years ago as we do now. And enlightenment? What is so special about David? What did God like about him? Why did God choose him? And how are you alike or different from David? And encouragement? Well, like I said before, if God could use David and some old grandma, he could use you. And here are the things I have to offer. 1, my book is available on Amazon or at your local bookstore. It's called Life Lessons from King David and Grandma. And secondly, I'm setting up virtual connections. And third, when this pandemic and quarantine are all through, I would love to come to speak at your church or group. Thank you, and you have a great day.